let's take a look at tackling the barrel of the cannon here. So if we go to create polygon primitives and we do a cylinder, let's do the option box for this. And let's just go ahead and edit and reset the settings and just leave the settings to where they are by default. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and that's going to create a cylinder. It's going to be kind of small down here at the center here. So if I scale this thing up, remember rest our fingers on Q, W, E, and R like this. And if we tap R for scale, we can scale this thing up. We can put on rotate. Now I do know if I click one of these axes and rotate them around, we can go to the channel box and we can figure this out. We could figure out that we need to rotate this 90 degrees like that. That's one way of doing it. The other thing is if we're going to zero this thing out and we go to rotate this, if we hold down J, that's going to make it snap in these different degrees of increments here. So hold down J and then click and drag on here. You should see it should snap to 90 degrees at that point. So I can take this and move it up. I'll just tap W for that. Move it up into position within here and accidentally hit the space bar. I'm just going to drag that back to here and then let go. So I meant to hold down Alt and then click and then kind of drag this within here. Now if we go to the channel box for this, I'm going to set this to subdivisions on the axis. I'm going to put this to 16 like this, and this gives us a nice pattern that runs right down the center this way, vertically and horizontally as well. Another pattern that would work well for that is 8 or 4. I just know 8 is a little bit low for the resolution. It would work okay, but a value 16 is probably going to give me a nice, more clean kind of round shape within here. So the other thing is we can go to the radius and we could middle mouse kind of drag the radius if we want to change that. Now if that's too quick of a change for you, if we click and drag that middle mouse like that, you can hold down control and middle mouse and it gives you finer control. So we can do the height as well, so I can change the height of this thing. So I'll move this, tap W, kind of move it in the center of this and then change the height. Middle mouse drag this maybe into like this area. Maybe I'll drag it out just a little bit more and then move it back within here. So we can take a look at the values that we've got here. So let's just give it a value of 12, somewhere in there. Maybe if we made this like 73 and then translate Z, we'll do 49, something like that within there. So I think that's going to work okay for us. So the other thing that we could do is just kind of move this down into the center. I don't think this thing is centered. If we put this on the reference mode, if we move this thing down, you can see we're kind of more centered with this thing right here in this area. So maybe a value of 70 will be good for that. And I'll put this back on template mode. It's just sometimes it's a little bit tough to kind of see some of this stuff. And so the next thing that I'll kind of do is use a tool called the MultiCut Tool. So we've got a general shape for this thing. Now we're going to start to really manipulate the shape quite a bit using some of these tools. So I guess before I use the MultiCut tool, maybe what would make sense is if we get a cut within here and kind of raise this up and then raise this area up in here. So I might want to just right click on here and say verts and select the verts that we've got here. Just select the marquee and then scale that up just a little bit. And you can see we're getting some of this angle that we've got going on here for the cannon, kind of like that. Now let's go right click and go to object mode. And if you do that, if you shift right click in object mode, you can get to the MultiCut tool. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is going to the modeling toolkit and then adding the MultiCut tool, just selecting it here. So you might find that that's actually a much easier option for you. When you've got the MultiCut tool on, you can see we can cut across things. We can just click and drag and actually slice through there, and it's going to slice through that model. I'm going to hit undo for that. That's actually pretty cool. But what I want to do is hold down control, and I can actually add some what they call edge loops in through here. So I'm going to add an edge loop right in here, and then maybe add one here. So I'm holding down control and just clicking. Now if I put on the pick tool and I double click this edge, if I right click in here and say edge, I can scale this thing in like this. So you can see how we've added some geometry here for this, and then taken this part and kind of scaled it in. Now, if I double click on here for this edge loop, hold down Shift and double click for this edge loop, we can scale this thing up this way a little bit, like that. So it's going to produce a shape like what you see here, what we got going on for that. And then what I'm going to do is go back to that MultiCut tool, add an edge here. Let's just add an edge right there and add an edge right in through here. So let's put it on the pick tool, double click our edge loop, put on the scale tool, scale it up, move it in just slightly. So let's double click this, move it in just a little bit. We're going to put it back on the MultiCut tool and just add another loop going through here, put on the pick tool, and I'll scale this up just a little bit, just like this, and then move it in like that. And then what I'm going to do is use the MultiCut tool. I'm just going to put something here, here, and through the middle. I'll do something here, here, and here through the middle. Now, if I want these to be equally spaced, what I can do, I was going to basically show you this. I can show you this as a pattern real quick, and I should have finished this out, but I'm just going to add these edges here. And if I select this edge loop, I can scale it up, and you can see it's going to build this shape, like what we got going on here. Now, it's all cool and all, but what if we want these things to be nice and evenly spaced? What we can do is use the MultiCut tool. I can select it there. I can go to the modeling toolkit, select it here. Or we can be in object mode, shift right click and select it that way. Either way you want to do it, that's fine. So I'm going to hold down Control and then try to add something like right in the center of each one of these. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, like this. And then now I can double click these edge loops, hold down Shift, double click this edge loop, do the same thing for here. And now we can shift right click and say bevel edge. And if we do that, I'm going to put the fraction down to 0.1. Let's just click this and hold Control as we drag this, middle mouse drag this. Actually, just select it and left mouse drag. Okay, so we do that, and then if we do these segments and we put it to 2, you can see now we've got 3 bands. They're all the same size, and we've got these edge loops that we can select this, hold down Shift, select this one, and select this one like that. And then now we can scale this thing out. Now I was going to show you if I do this uniform scale, we can do that, but you can see what's going to happen here. It's going to scale this thing out this direction, this one's okay. Now if we just scale in these 2 dimensions like this, we can just scale out and it won't scale anywhere along the Z. So we used this little cube thing to kind of scale that thing out like that. And that could come in nice and handy for you sometimes if you just want to scale in 2 different axes all at the same time. So the next thing we're going to do is select this vert. We're going to right click and say Vertices right here. Select this vert, and we will convert the selection type into a face. So if you hit F11, that's going to give you your face types. Now if you hold down Control and hit F11, it'll select this vert and select the vert and convert it into faces. So this vert, if you look, it touches all these different faces. So watch this. Select that vert, hold down Control, hit F11, and it converts that vertices selection into faces selection. So now we can do this thing where we shift right click and we say extrude face. I'll click this button to make it go from localized to world, and then we'll just click on one of the scale icons, click and drag on this scale in the middle, and it's going to scale this down. Now if you repeat your last command, if we tap G, it's going to scale it, extrude it in again. I'm going to click this to go into the world location, and let's just scale this thing down again. So do something right around within through here. Now I didn't really do it on this one, and I could just kind of pull that in just a little bit just to kind of see what's going on here. And let's scale this thing down again just a little bit more. And let's just tap G for our last command. Click that button here and then push that thing in. kind of like this, and then we could scale this thing down within through here, just like that. So we've got just about everything that we need for this part of the cannon. Let's tap F10 to go to our edges, double click this, and then we can scale this thing down. And I think we're pretty good for that shape right within through there, like that. And what I'm going to do at this point is just make the back end of this. So we're going to actually take a sphere. We're going to go create polygon primitives, and we're going to go sphere. Let's just do the option box for this. Let's just do 16 and 16 for our divisions. Hit apply like this. There's our sphere. Let's move it up here. What I can do is actually hold down V, and I can snap that to the center of this thing here, because if we turn on wireframe on shaded, there's a vertice sitting in the center there, so that makes it really easy to snap to. Now if we put on rotate, tap Q, W, R, and that will cycle between these guys. Remember, we're just resting our hands on there. I'm going to put on the rotate tool, E. If you hold down J, you can click on here and you can rotate this thing 90 degrees. Channel box is right here, so if you want to take a look at that, you can see and make sure that you're rotated 90 degrees for that. And if we tap R for scaling, we can scale this guy up just like this, get it to be about this size, then scale this in right in through here like that. And then maybe what we want to do, scale this up just a little bit, is take this edge right in through here. So hit F10 or right click on here and say edge, double click this, and then move it in just a little bit like that. And I'm going to tap 4 so we can see through the model. And I'm going to select this vertice right here. I'm going to grow this selection out. If you hit shift and then the arrow key that's right next to, it's like the period key really, it's right next to the question mark. If you hold on shift and then keep tapping that, it grows out that selection that you see here, and we can grow that out like this. And now if we hold down W to put on the move tool and we hold down X, we can snap all that and make it kind of flat. If I tap 5, you can see I'm kind of pulling this in just a little bit. So we just use the grid to kind of snap everything down, and then we're just moving it into position to where it's kind of out here just a little bit. Now if you wanted to line up directly with these verts, you can hold down V and then snap and move it right here like that. I'm just moving this one axis, holding down V, and then snapping like this that you see here. And tap F8 to go here. We can delete the history, Alt-Shift-D, and we can select this part, Alt-Shift-D, delete the history. Now it's up to you if you want to leave the scale information and everything else that's kind of going on there for that. So the other thing we can do is just create maybe a cylinder that you got going on in here, and we can put this kind of cap thing at the end of what we got going on there. So we can just go ahead and say create polygon primitives, and we'll do another sphere. This time, if we go to the creation options for it, let's just put a division of 8 and 8, and then we'll scale this thing up, tap R, rotate it into position. So we'll tap J, or actually hold down J and then rotate that into place, move it, so tap W to put on the move tool, and then hold down V to kind of snap right in the center here, just like that. And we'll scale this thing down. We'll get it to be the right scale. Let's move it into position. So I'm going to just manipulate this thing, move it like this. And what I can do, because I want this thing to be nice and flat, if I select all the edges for this, I'll hit F10, and I can drag and marquee on all these. I'll tap 4 to kind of take a look through the model, kind of like this. And I can just hit backspace like this, and it'll get rid of all those edges that were past that certain spot there. Now if we right click and say face, we can select a face, and we can shift right click and extrude the face. And I'll take that and put that in moving an object. And I can just push this through here like that. And we can delete the history on this. Alt-Shift-D will delete the history. And so we've deleted the history on there. And so what we can call this is the cannon barrel. So instead of typing it out, I'm just going to copy the naming from this. I'm going to paste it on here, Control V, just like this. And this is the cannon end. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that there. And then I call this like the back end. I'm going to copy this, paste it on here, just like that. And that's just some way that you can copy and steal the names for things. Remember, if you want to zero out the location of it, we can go to Modify Freeze Transformations. We do that for that one. If you want to repeat last command, select something, tap G, and it'll repeat the last command for that. And then for this last little piece here, this was used a primitive of a torus. So if we do create polygon primitives and we do a torus, let's take a look at that. Actually, it wasn't a torus. Let's take a look at a pipe. So we'll do a pipe. Let's create it. Say create polygon primitive and do a pipe. Let's just go ahead and scale this thing up, rotate it into position. So we'll hold down J and then rotate it this way 90 degrees. Let's just rotate this 90 like this, move it into position. And I'm going to move it on these two different axes here. So we'll scale it down kind of like this, and then we'll scale it in just like this. And then for the pipe, what we can do is do thickness. We can change the thickness on this to something like that. And then maybe the radius is a bit smaller, and we'll scale this thing back up. And we'll have to scale it in here. And again, change maybe the thickness of this a bit. And I think I'm going to scale it this way just a little bit more to kind of match some of the reference. So we're somewhere in this ballpark, somewhere like this, and we can call this handle something like that. Yep. So what I did is I made a group called cannon barrel for that. So I'll select all these and hit Control G, and I'm just going to paste the name in there for that, and then I'll middle mouse drag this into that cannon new. So you can see with this hierarchy that we're building, we're able to put everything for the cannon in this one kind of group like this, and it doesn't like it, I think, because of this negative scale that we've got for I think I have screen space animated occlusion turned on, so it doesn't really like that too much. But other than that, like, we can take this thing and we should be able to manipulate it and kind of move it around within there, something like that. So make sure you're also saving your work often. So we'll save file, save scene as, and if we go to this, we'll go to the Proxy Cannon, maybe version 2, and save it. And the next part would be making some of the wheels and making like the axis through here and making these parts right in through here like that. And that's going to give us everything that we're going to need for this section. All right, now that we have the main body of the cannon done through here, through this metal part, let's work at some like common kind of objects, which you can see like are these axes that you see right through the wheels. And to do that, we're just going to go create some cylinders. We're going to go create polygon primitives, and we'll do cylinder. Let's take a look at the option box and see what we've got for the default settings. We'll reset the settings. I'm going to put this to this axis division of 16. We'll hit apply like this. And then let's just go ahead and rotate these into position. So put on the rotate tool, hotkey E, hold down J, and click and drag this axis. We can rotate it 90 degrees. If you see the channel box here, you can actually change that value right there within that, something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale this thing up like this using the R key. We'll get it to be about roughly the size that we're looking for this way. And if you remember, we can use these little squares to scale on 2 axes. So if we get the width set, we can scale down this way. Let's just go ahead and move this into position right there like that, and then something like that within here. So we're getting a little bit closer. Let's just go ahead and scale this thing out this way a little bit more, and then scale this guy down right and through there like that. Now if we can't see this, we can put this on this reference mode that we see here. Scale this in within there like that. And if I want to move this into position, I can put it on W and I can hold down V and I can snap to the verts that you can see like right here in the center like that. And then we can hold down V and then snap down to the center on here like this. And so that's going to give us our axis that we see here. And let's just call this axle front. We're going to copy the name from this one and then paste it here just like that. So we got axle front. I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, and then we can move this thing back like this. I can just hold down V and then snap right here like that, and we'll call this axle back. Let's just copy that and paste it on here like that. And so these are common. They go down the middle. There's not a left side or right side, so we can just middle mouse drag these onto the Canon new, and that becomes part of the bigger group that we see within here. Again, we can put this back on template mode like this. Now if we want, we can steal one of these and duplicate it and turn it into a wheel. So we can hit Control D, we can duplicate it, and we can call this on the side left. I actually didn't name these guys like this. I think it's just maybe these cylinders like that. So I'm going to give it a better name than that. I'm going to call this wheel front like this, and underscore front like that. And then I'll scale this thing up. I'll scale it up this way, oops, and scale it down this way a little bit. Scale it here. I'm going to make it the larger scale like this. Make it about this size, and then move it into position right here. Scale it back down a little bit like this. Then move it into position right about there, like something like that. So we'll do wheel front like that. We'll duplicate it. I hit Control D, just move it out this way, and then scale this thing down to about here and move it in. And maybe we can call this wheel front underscore rim like that. Now if we want to duplicate this whole thing, we can hit Control D and move these, hold down V, and we could snap to the center of this axle right here like that. And what we've got is wheel rear like this, and then we'll call this wheel rear rim. It's pretty important that you name your object something that means something. You can see up here I didn't pay too close attention to that and made it a little bit difficult to kind of figure out what some of these things were. So if I take all these wheels that we've got here and we throw it into, middle mouse drag it into the side left, we can just get rid of the side R, and we can keep doing this process where we take the side L, duplicate it, Control D, and we can call this side underscore R like that, and just give it a negative scale and X. And you can see now very quickly we've got a left side and a right side for things, and that's starting to work pretty good for us. So I'm going to hit Control S just to save that, and the next part we'll do maybe this piece within here and add some of these just little details in through there, and then we'll actually be done proxy modeling this, except for this little wedge shape, which is pretty easy to make as well. All right, for the cannon, let's go ahead and make this pivot that you see within here, so the cannon could actually rotate and it could angle up or down based off of this pivot point jet that you see here. So we've already got an axle or like some kind of cylinder that's kind of working in this space here. So we can just duplicate that, hit Control D, and we'll move this thing up. We'll scale the thing up right like this, right about there, and then we'll scale it this way within here. And we don't need to be like super perfect. Now what I can do is put this on the reference mode, put on the move tool. If we hold down V and we click and snap to the center point here like that, we can get it in the center here. If we hold down V and move it in this direction and we snap right here, we can get it nice and lined up, and we can kind of scale it out this way. And remember, if we want to scale in 2 axes, we can do it like this. If we hold on control, we can get some finer kind of control for that. And I don't really need to kind of fix up the numbers for this. I'm just kind of eyeballing this section in through here. So I'll put this back on template mode that you see here, and I call this barrel pivot. I'm just going to copy that, and I'll paste it onto this one here, just like that. So we've got something set for this barrel pivot, like what we see here. So I think we're good to go on that. And now was going to make this piece that you see right in through here, and to kind of create that, what I'm going to do is duplicate this barrel pivot. I'm going to hit Control D. Now to hide something, you can select it and you can go to Display, you can go to Show, and you can say Hide Selection, or hide Selection right here under Hide and Show. Sorry. So we go Hide Selection. So that hides that piece, and now we've got this piece that we're going to be just kind of working with. And what I can do is I can take all the verts on here, so I can tap F9, or you can right click on here and say Vertices, either one, doesn't matter. You can hold tap W and then hold down X and snap in for the grid, or you can hold down V and we can snap in through here for the edge of that thing, either one. So I think that works for us. The other thing that we can do is we could move all these verts, select all these verts and move them in right here. We could hold down V and then snap to like that vertice right there. And that gives us what we see here. Now, the thing that I want is these faces in through here. So if I right click in here and say face, and if I select this face, hold down Shift, select this one, keep going around here, holding down Shift and adding to that selection. If I tap 4, I can see in wireframe, and it looks like I just have the faces selected that I want. Now here's this cool thing. If you hold down Shift and you drag a marquee around the entire object, it's going to select faces, but it's going to give you the inverse of what we just selected. So it's going to select all the other faces except for those first faces that we selected. So if you tap 5, you can see here's all these faces. Now we can hit delete. I'm just going to hit delete, and we're left with a shape that looks like this. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is hit F10, or we right click on here and say edge, select this edge, Shift right click on it and say extrude edge. This is moving in object mode right now, so you see it's at this weird angle, or we can click this and tell it to move in world space, and that's what I want. So I'm going to hold down V and then move like this right here, and now I'll tap F9, grab these verts, put on the move tool, tap W for that, hold down V, and it's going to turn on Vert Snapping, and we'll snap to these verts here. Let's do the same thing for this, extrude this. So we're going to hit F10, or we can right click on here and say edge, select the edge, Shift right click for extrude. We're going to extrude the edge in world space just like this, and let's select this thing again. I'm going to hit F8 to get to it, and right click on here and say vertices, and I just want this one. Sometimes it grabs multiple things, so I just want to grab this and then hit F9. It's going to select these verts. So now we can put it on the move tool, hold down V, and then snap there. If that becomes a problem, I can't snap to anything there, we can turn this on from reference, from template to reference. Just hold down V and then snap to these guys here. I'll put it back on template for that. So that gives us this shape that you see here. Now what we can do is select all the faces on there. So we can hold down Shift and keep selecting, or we can just double click the whole thing and it'll select all the faces in that selection that we got there. Now let's extrude it. So Shift right click, say extrude face, and let's just do a thickness, and then drag the thickness up of this, and we'll do a thickness of 1. And that should give us the shape that we're looking for this. And let's see, what did I call this thing here? I'm going to turn off the template and select this here. Turn off reference, select it. So we got this right side. I just called it a poly cylinder. So again, didn't give it a very good name. So I'll call this barrel pivot clamp, like this. Okay, so I know I'm going to duplicate this over. So let's delete this history, Alt-Shift-D, and let's middle mouse drag it into the side left because we're going to duplicate this thing over like that. And so the next pieces that we can make here is just, I know I took some simple cylinders and then kind of manipulated the shape for that. So let's just do this. Let's go create polygon primitives and we'll do a cylinder like this and do the option box for it. And we'll do subdivision axis, we'll do 8 like this and hit apply. So it's going to be really small down here. Let's rotate it. Hold down J, rotate it 90 degrees, scale this thing up like this, and then we'll move it into position. And these, I wasn't super concerned with just like the exact placement of these. Now if you want to get them like exactly where I've got them, you can take them and manipulate them this way. Let's just scale this thing out just a little bit like this, and let's move it up just a little bit. If I keep this on reference mode, what I can do is hold down V and I could snap it to the center here. I could snap it to this part, and then we could scale this thing up just like that, and then scale this thing in just a little bit like this and through there. And let's just get it scaled down just a little bit more so you can check out these numbers and see kind of roughly where we're at. So let's go ahead and put this back in template mode. Now what I can do is hit F9, select these verts that are here, hold down V and then snap to this point right down there. And I can take these verts and hold down V and then snap them here. Take these and snap them here. So we can call this maybe clamp, something like that. Front like this, duplicate it, and then move it into position. Call this clamp rear, like that. And we're going to duplicate these on the left side and the right side. So let's middle mouse drag these into the side left. And let's unhide our barrel pivot. Shift H will unhide something, or we can go to display and then show selection right there. So that's what we're doing to turn that thing on. And so then now we've got a right side. Let's get rid of it. Let's take our side left, duplicate it, Control D, call this underscore right. And I can middle mouse drag this and rearrange this in the outliner. And let's give it a negative scale of 1, just like that. Okay, so now we've got just about everything there for the cannon. I get Control S to save this thing. I'll close this thing down. And then the last thing that we got going on here is this wedge. So this is going to be a pretty easy shape. We're going to go create polygon primitives. We'll do a cube. Let's just do the object mode for this. And we'll move it into position. So we're going to scale this thing, move it, and manipulate it. And you want to start getting faster and faster at kind of doing this part and scaling this thing up. I'm going to put on the reference mode so we can kind of see what's going on with this. So scale wise it's working that way. If we get it within here, scale up, move it, just scale it within here like that. Right there, like that. And it looks like I got off the center of the X, so I'm going to put that on 0, just to zero it out. I'm not sure how I moved that over, but I did. I'm just going to scale this in just a little bit, just like this. There we go. And I'm going to put that on 0.31, 0.32, something like that. And I can select the face of this. I'm going to hit F11. I'm going to select this face right here. If I tap 4, you can see I knew I was selecting through that. And we'll do Shift, right click, extrude face, and we'll move this out to about here, right there at the end. And then now we'll select an edge, right click on here and say edge, select this, and then we'll put in the move tool, and we will just move this down like this. So that's going to build that kind of wedge shape. Let's call this wedge, like that. Middle mouse drag it into the Canon new. And then we need to create this little tiny pipe right there like that, and through here. So we'll do create polygon primitives, and we'll do a cylinder. We got an axis division of 8, hit apply for that, and then we can rotate this into position. So let's rotate it here. We can change this to -90, and we can move it like this, scale it, scale it out this way, move it up, and we can scale it on those 2 axes like this. And it doesn't have to be super exact, but we're going to get it right in through there somewhere like that, and call that handle. And I'll middle mouse drag that into the Canon new. Okay, and so then at that point, we've got everything that we need for the Canon part proxied out and modeled out. And we can actually hide the old template that we've got there. And if you want, it's already in the geo area. If you wanted to throw it in the template area, you could, but I'm just using these as the templates that we would be building off of. So we can kind of frame this thing up, get it into a good position, maybe turn on screen space ambient occlusion, and then just take a look at it. And you can see I've got wireframe on shaded is turned on as well. And so if we turn on the shaded, and then this is the wireframe on shaded right in through there like that, and we have the anti-aliasing turned on. So we can get a pretty good look at our proxy Canon that we got. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and then that will be that for proxy modeling out the Canon.